the idea is that they have a southern, a central, and a northern, and then once they've seen everybody, they then record interest in players, and the parents get a list with who expressed interest in your child. I think now you can go to more than one, but we just went to the southern one at the time. I think in COVID year we couldn't go to another one, but somebody was telling me that you can go to a couple. But then you get an email which says these are the clubs that are interested in discussing more. That point, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether I was supposed to call them or they were supposed to call me. I think probably the intention was that you contacted them, but that's quite a hard thing to do. And if you have a list, we had maybe, I don't know, 8, 9 clubs that were interested. I didn't know which one to start with. Like, why? And like, if I spoke to one and they said, come for a trial, I'd be like, oh, do I go there before Huddersfield or after Huddersfield? And should I call that one first or that one? I don't know. And I still don't know the answer.
Isn't it? I mean, it's such a daunting, it must be such a I haven't been through it, yet, Kate. There's a possibility that at some point I may or may not. But it's quite a daunting process for a parent to have to go through. And especially if you don't know much about football or the industry and, so to have to navigate is... Honestly, it must be mind-boggling, and people will get lost. Youngsters will get lost in the system. It's just you need that parent support, right? I mean, can you imagine how your son would have got to the trials or known how to work his way around them if you hadn't been there to support him?
Truly, and I think that's where I think what's interesting is that, of course, those are structured opportunities that are offered to you, but it doesn't answer the question of how to navigate them. And we were fortunate with George in that when he was told that he wouldn't be getting a scholarship, it was earlier, and I think the club took a really good decision to say, we know that it was hard before, and if we've made the decision, we should let them know earlier, which for us was a much better way of supporting George to carry on. Both boys went back and trained at Brighton, but George didn't actually end up doing the exit trials because we started looking earlier, and I was much more prepared. As I had by then, I'm like, I know how to call up clubs now. Like, I've learned how to do it. So he actually had his scholarship offer at Ipswich before the exit trials even happened. So we didn't have to go through it a second time. But I do think they're quite a brutal. To only have that as your offer is really hard. But at the same time, how do you set up other things if you don't know the process? You kind of can rely on the exit trials. And if you don't have an agent, which you're encouraged not to have an agent until they're older, then who advises you over, should I call up this club or this club? Is this club got a better pathway than this club? And what is a pathway anyway? And does it matter where the first team are, or am I looking for the quality of the academy? And, all of these are things that I've learned a bit more about, which at the time you would have been, as they say, chasing the badge. Like, okay, we're leaving a Cat 1 Premiership club. We need to go somewhere similar. But actually understanding what the scholarship is and what it means and what it involves for the next few years, it's not as simple as to say we need to find the closest match to a Premiership Cat 1 club. Actually, you've got to think about where in the country, what's the education offer? Are there host families for them? Is it a nice place to live? Does the club really like the player? And is there truly space and a kind of pathway is always this thing, but is there somewhere for them to move into, or is it just a giant pool of boys? So I feel that I learned so much from the discussions I had with Tom, even though it was an unusual time. I still was calling up clubs, having conversations with clubs, but I think it was more with George. I really stepped into it and said, right, I know how to do this. And, I had calls from clubs who wanted George on an 8-week trial. And I was just like, no, I haven't got 8 weeks to give to you for this. I've got GCSEs and, very limited holidays. I need to have if you want to have a look at him, it's got to be realistic. I can't bring him to you 3 times a week for 8 weeks. That would just cut us out of going anywhere else. So I think I became more assertive second time around.